Hi, everyone, and welcome to Diverse Dividends. I'm your host, Sara Loriot, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Janet Bannister. If you do not know Janet, make sure that you stick around for the full episode because believe me, she is worth knowing. So Janet has a very impressive and interesting background, making her what is, in my opinion, one of Canada's most accomplished investors, entrepreneurs, and venture capitalists. So I have beside me the founder of Kijiji, which I'm sure we all know, but her accomplishments go far beyond that. So Janet has built quite the career in venture capital, having built her own firm called Staircase Ventures, where she helps entrepreneurs in tech grow in their careers. So, in addition to that, having done my research on Janet, I found out that earlier in her life, she was named Canada's National Triathlon Champion. Wow. Is there something that you haven't done?
Oh, lots of stuff. Yeah.
But thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited for the conversation ahead.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, wonderful. So in today's episode, we will, of course, talk about Janet's professional journey and how she moved from the corporate world to launching Kijiji and to now helping other entrepreneurs grow their businesses. But we'll also talk about something that I think is quite interesting. So the notion of risk and something that is very, very relevant in the world of finance. So with that, how about we begin?
Great.
Wonderful. So I like to start these interviews with really getting to know you, who you're all about. But in your case specifically, I would love to hear about how you got to where you are, because I understand that you worked in the corporate world. You launched Kijiji, which at some point in time was the most visited website in Canada of its kind. And now you moved to the other side, helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses. So please tell me about how you got to where you are today.
Wow. Well, yeah, as you said, there's lots of sort of steps along the journey and lots of, things, one thing led to another thing. But in terms of how I got into investing, because I was hired by a firm called Wheel Ventures to be their first partner in Toronto. And that was in the Wheel Ventures did early stage venture capital investing, and it was interesting. My first reaction when they contacted me was like, oh, I don't want to go into venture capital. Like, aren't venture capital people like these mean people who yell and scream at the entrepreneurs, and success means being able to negotiate really good terms for yourself? And then, so that was my first reaction. But then I realized that actually it's very different from that. And the most successful venture capitalists are people who build great relationships with their founders, can work collaboratively with the founders that they invest in, and help those founders grow and develop and build great businesses. And so when I realized that that's what venture capital was all about, I thought, awesome, that's what I want to be a part of.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, was your background in being an entrepreneur yourself? Did that help you become good at what you do in venture capital?
Absolutely. I think that having operating experience and specifically being an entrepreneur and starting a business is invaluable, particularly if you're going to be investing in early stage companies. Because for a couple of reasons. First of all, because you have credibility with founders, right?
Yeah.
You have walked in their shoes. And so I think that's very important. And what that means is you have empathy. You can understand what they're going through, and you can, so that's sort of one aspect. But then the other is more on the practical aspect in terms of helping entrepreneurs understand, okay, what type of person should you hire for this particular role? How should you build your operating structures? And so because of my experience, I'm able to get very involved with our portfolio and do things such as I will interview potential candidates, or I'll have whiteboarding sessions with them going through, okay, how should the organizational structure work? And, how do we keep everybody on the same page across the organization? And those are things that I have done and I can relate to. And it's not just a matter of, oh, I read about these things in a textbook, so I think you should do them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, everything that you've just mentioned is not something that it feels like you could just learn about in a curriculum or whatnot. And before the beginning of this interview, I was telling Janet that in studying for CFA, the one talk topic that detracted me from studying was venture capital. And I just got so excited about it because it just feels like it goes far beyond just studying a business. It feels like it's a lot about the people that you're investing with.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's one of the things I love about venture capital is I think that all business is people business.
Yeah.
But I think that venture capital particularly is true.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is a couple of things. First of all, I think as an investor who's investing into companies, the best companies will have their choice of who to take capital from. And money is a commodity.
Mhm.
And so as an investor, you need to build a relationship with a founder. You need to have the reputation based upon your years of work
Mhm.
that founders will choose to work with you rather than somebody else. And so you need that. Then you need to have intense understanding and empathy and mutual trust and respect in order to work on an ongoing basis with these founders. Because unlike something like private equity, which in private equity, sometimes the investors will take majority control. In venture investing, you are a minority owner. And so you do not have any control. And it's much more about building trust and building respect and then having influence where appropriate.
Wow, you just took me back to my day studying for CFA. I'm very enthusiastic about that side of our industry, and I'm excited to showcase that side of the industry to our listeners as well. So that's wonderful. So you drew some comparisons of venture capital to private equity. Could you draw some of the similarities and differences to investing in public equities as well?
Absolutely. So I think there's so many. I guess I'll say sort of a one big similarity and one big difference. I think the similarity is that in both cases, you're investing into a business that you think will grow in value over time. And I think also in both cases, you're having to invest based upon limited information, right? Even if it's a public company, you don't know everything. And so you need to read what you have. You also need read what's available about the company. You need to understand the competition. You need to understand the market. And based on that, make a best investment decision. That being said, I think there are a lot of differences. And so, two particularly come to mind. One is the ability to trade that asset. So with public markets, if you invested in a company and you decide a week later that actually that wasn't such a good investment, then you can get out. Versus with venture capital, you're locked in for several years. And so it just increases the importance of really understanding the people who you're working with and the business and doing that research, because once you get in, you're really in. And then I think the second thing is your ability to influence the company is significantly greater if you're investing as a venture investor as opposed to investing like an institutional investor into private equity, into public stocks. And so again, it depends on what you like to do. Personally, for me, I love to have that relationship with our founders and to be there to support them and see them grow and see them overcome challenges.
That's so fascinating. So it's clear that we're looking at a people's business. So fast forward to today, you've launched Staircase Ventures. So can you tell us about Staircase Ventures and your mission?
Absolutely. So first of all, what Staircase Ventures does, we are an early stage venture capital firm. So we lead seed stage rounds in primarily Canadian-based business-to-business software companies. There are a couple of key differentiators between how Staircase Ventures operates and how other venture capital firms operate. And I think first and foremost is our founder growth platform. And it really stems from this very strong people aspect that I've always had, in terms of in general, but particularly as applied to venture capital. And what's interesting about the venture capital industry is that the founders are the most important success factor. Particularly, as I said, with early stage founders, that things are changing all the time. The founders need to have that tenacity and determination. They need to be able to change accordingly based upon the markets. They need to be able to hire great people. However, very few, if any, venture capital folks focus on investing in building the team They're all focused on, hey, after we invest, how can we help the business? How can we introduce them to potential clients, etc. But I said, hey, if the most important success factor is the founders, we need to do a lot to help those founders grow and develop their skills and perform their best. Or as I like to say, the founders need to scale as quickly as their business. So if your business is doubling or tripling every year, that means the founders' ability, the founders' talents, the founders' leadership skills, they need to be doubling or tripling every year. And so what we do, which is distinct from any other venture capital firm that I'm aware of, is we have a 5-pillar platform. And this is really based upon my years of being in venture. The first thing that we do that's paid by the management company, so paid by us, is we provide executive coaches to all of our CEOs. Because I have seen that can be a real difference maker to help the founders scale and develop. The second thing we do is we provide peer support groups. So again, something that I have seen that's really important to help founders scale themselves and feel supported is to be surrounded by other founders who are going through or have gone through a similar thing. So the first 2 pillars really talk about how can we help founders, scale and develop their own abilities. I also am very involved in coaching them as well. But then the other 3 pillars of the platform, they really speak to how can we help founders show up their best every day. And I think, again, too many people, they don't think about that. They don't think about, okay, it's fine if you know what to do. It's fine. But if you're not able to show up your best every day, if you're not able to show up energized and ready to put your best face forward, it doesn't really matter. And so what we provide in that respect is, first of all, we have give all of our founders access to a confidential health coach at Cleveland Clinic. So be that for emotional or physical or mental health and well-being, they can get the support that they need. The second thing that we do is we have a personal financial advisor to help all of our founders with anything on their personal financial side. And the last one that we do is it's a family support. And so we provide a cash payment to each of our founders in the first year that we say, hey, this is cash for you to spend however you want. But the idea is that they use it to help them balance the needs between work and their loved ones. And so that could be for childcare or elder care, or take their significant other or their best friend out for a really nice dinner once a month, or go away for a weekend with some friends, whatever they want to do to help support them, and recognizing that everybody wears multiple hats.
My goodness, I feel like becoming an entrepreneur just to be able to be part of that program. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. So going back to when you founded Kijiji, I don't know if you dealt with venture capital at the time. Like, did you receive that type of support?
So no, I don't think I've ever in my career received like that holistic type of support. I have gone out and sought it out and had executive coaches for myself. I've got an awesome group of friends who support me, and I'm very healthy. So I sort of have pieced it together, those things together, but I've had to go out and find them on my own.
That's incredible. Well, no, I just love, again, going back to the people aspect. And so you've mentioned some of the traits that you look in people, right? Like tenacity, etc. But how do you find the people and the ideas worth investing in?
So we see about 1,000 different companies a year, and we will invest in 4. So we really are looking, as I like to say, it's not just the needle in the haystack, it's the golden needle in the haystack. And then what we're looking for. And when we look at potential investments, I think about it in terms of, like, it's really 2 categories of things. One is the business and the other is the team. And so in terms of the business, it's probably fairly basic business 101 types of things in terms of, what are they doing? What's their long-term competitive advantage? What do the economics look like? How are the markets shifting? How's the technology shifting? Where do we think that the existing players will be going, et cetera, right? And so there's that sort of business lens. And then there's the human lens. And the human lens is really, okay, if we believe in that vision, is this the team that we think is going to help do we think this is the team that can realize that vision? And on that, there's a lot of different factors, but what I have found is the 3 most significant factors are number one, do they just have that tenacity and that grit and the get it done approach and attitude and habits that they are just going to keep going, come rain or shine, they will get it done. The second thing that we look for and evaluate is, are they able to surround themselves with outstanding people? So can they recruit, manage, and retain outstanding people? Because it doesn't matter how great a CEO is, if he or she can't attract other top talent to the company, like they'll never be able to build a large company. And then the last thing is just sort of a level of personal accountability, personal growth. And so what I mean by that is, do they take accountability for the results? Or are they somebody who points to others and blames others? And do they take accountability if the results aren't in? Do they say, okay, what could I have done better? How can I learn from this? How can I be better next time? As opposed to blaming others around them.
That's incredible. So essentially, before you invest in someone and into a business, you really have to get to know them. It's more than just, a one pitch, one conversation.
Yes, you really
who are you?
You really need to get to know them as human beings.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the other thing is, we talked about sort of the investing in public markets versus venture capital.
Yeah.
And venture capital, because, you're in for a long, it's hard to exit the venture capital. Like you are in with that company, it could be 5, 8, 10, 12 years. And so you need to really understand the people who you're investing with.
Wow. I'm fascinated by that side of the industry. And it's funny, last week I had a conversation with friends talking about this upcoming interview. And because I'm very passionate about what you do, because I'm more of a people's person than I'm more creative and whatnot, as opposed to being analytical,
Yes.
I guess, which is, what you would think of, as someone working on an investment team, for instance. My friends were like, you're really romanticizing venture capital. I'm like, it's all about having an impact and the people and getting to know them. But I mean, the truth is, yes, you are committed for a long time. And in that, there is a lot of uncertainty.
Yes.
And, whether it's, having witnessed it with some of the people you invested with, or having experienced it yourself, having been and continuing to be an entrepreneur, when there are moments of doubts, how do you build resiliency? How do you keep pushing forward? Because there will be ups, there will be downs. It's not just,
yes,
all positive. Yeah.
Yes. And so I guess if the question is, hey, how do founders or how do other people build that resiliency and how do I do it? I think what I do is, I think so much of it comes down to belief and confidence in yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you believe in yourself, then you can, have the confidence as, I believe in myself, I can keep going. And I think also what helps with me is thinking back on times that have been really tough where I've got through it before. So I say to myself, okay, come on, Jan, like you did this, you got through that, you got through that, you got through that, now you can get through this.
Well, I guess going back to, you being an athlete.
Yes.
Doing triathlon or long distance running, did that contribute in any way to your success today?
So I started competitive running when I was like in grade 6, and I did competitive running all through high school. University, I was on the varsity track team and the cross country team, and then after university, I got into triathlons. And absolutely, competitive athletics has been one of the most influential influences in my life. It has taught me so much just about grit and determination, about self-confidence, and just like having the ability, like, okay, Jan, like put yourself out there. Yeah. It was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think, I used to do cross country, and there'd be, in some of these races, there'd be like 400 girls all on the start line.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And it would be freezing cold or pouring rain. But anyways, and we'd all get in line. And then like, you'd run across this field, and then very quickly it would narrow down. So if it was a race that like I was one of the top runners, then like you have to, of all these people, you need to get out fast, right? And you need to get to the front of the pack before the pack narrows. And it's just sort of that mentality of, okay, Jana, like go out hard, right? Yeah. Go out hard and stay out hard, but have the confidence in yourself to go to the front of the pack. And I think that's the same thing, like often whether you're sitting around a business room, right? And having the confidence to say, hey, I'm going to speak up and say something, right? It's all the same type of reflex.
Yeah, this is such a good analogy. I mean, something that you've experienced. I'm not an athlete myself, but yeah,
I think it's also interesting, like so much of sort of what we do in terms of the founders and the founder growth platform and thinking really a lot about how do people show up their best. That all comes from my athletic background. And I think, hey, if you want people to be an Olympic athlete, you need to provide them with a coach. You need to have great teammates around them. You need to give them the best, like you need to think about their health and things like that. And so I think about it very much, how do you get high performing? And I think on that, one thing that people sometimes who don't know me or don't understand, they'll look from the back and they'll say, oh, I see Staircase Ventures is really founder friendly. And I'm not even sure what that means, but some people interpret that to mean, oh, you're really easy on your founders. And my perspective is actually no. I have extremely high standards for my founders, and I provide all these things so that they will rise to the standard, and I will help them get there. So I think of it's like, hey, if you want to recruit, if you want your athletes to go to the Olympics and you're their coach, you give them all these things, and then you believe in them, and you have very high standards, and you expect them to meet that, and you work every day to help them and to raise the bar constantly. And being good to your founders, being good to anybody who you co-work or your family, it doesn't mean, oh, you can take it easy and mediocre is acceptable. It's no. That like very high standards, but I'm going to help you get there.
No, I love that. I've kind of reframed my philosophy on work in the last few years, where work doesn't have to suck, because I spend so much. I love my job. I just want to say. We spend so much time at work, right? And it's almost like I used to have the expectation that, oh, because I'm being paid to provide a service, it's okay. Like my mental health or emotional, well-being or whatnot can take a hit because I'm exchanging my time for money. But then more recently, I realized that for the amount of time that I spend at work, when I go back home, like not only do I bring some of the stress with me, but I'm one person. I do wear multiple hats. I have multiple identities. I hold multiple roles in my life. But then from that standpoint, across the board, I should feel healthy, whether it's physically, mentally, and whatnot. And so I do agree that at work, it's important to feel supported from a mental, emotional standpoint, have good working condition, so that, because when I'm home, if I'm happy at home, I'm going to be better at work. And if I'm better at work, I'm going to be better at the home. It's just like kind of one holistic self.
Yes, absolutely. And if you want people to perform their best at work, you need to think about them. People are not machines. They're holistic people. And if you want them to perform their best at work, you need to help them show up their best every day.
Yeah. Oh, fully understand. So talking about having confidence in the people, how, perhaps more of a tricky question, but you work in tech and there's a lot of, very innovative ideas out there. So how do you have confidence in emerging technology trends?
Wow. Well, there's lots of sort of things. I think at a high level, we're always looking at all the different emerging trends. And at this point, I was going to say probably, maybe I don't need to say the word probably, but anyways, it's the fastest rate of change in technology that I think we've ever seen, which on the one hand can make it challenging as an investor, because it's like, well, what's going to change next year? What's going to change the year before? So you have to be very careful in terms of what are you investing in? And if one way of thinking about it is, hey, if the rate of technology increases even faster next year, if those foundational models get even better, is that a good thing for our company, or is that not so good? And you've got to invest in companies where you say, hey, the disruption is on our side. If the core large language models improve significantly, that's actually going to help our business.
That's so interesting. So I would like to talk about the notion of risk. So working in finance, we talk about risk a lot. And I think that, there are different ways we can think about risk, but, specifically for venture capital, on the spectrum from, being safe to risky, it's probably a bit riskier because for all the reasons that we just discussed. But again, me being me, I'm passionate about venture capital. I'm learning a ton with you today, but when I think about venture capital, I think about excitement. I think about, having an impact, but obviously there's a risk side to it. So having been, around for a long time in that space, can you tell us about your philosophy when it comes to risk?
Yeah, so I actually don't view the investing that I do as risky. And I think, first of all, it's like we invest in a portfolio of different companies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also, just as a step back in terms of how you view risk is, so my father was, he was a salesperson. He worked at IBM for years. That was his career. And so he would have received a large portion of his compensation in commission. And he used to say to us, some people think that being a commission salesperson is a very risky job,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's actually the least risky job because your fate is in your hands. Mm. And he used to say, if you work hard, if you do a great job, if you sell, you will always be needed. Versus, hey, you could be a middle manager and there could be a reorganization or your boss could lose his or her job and then you're fired. And so I think so that was always an interesting philosophy that helped to shape me. And so today I think, maybe it's risky, but I can to some level control that risk. Mm-hmm. I get to choose what we invest in. Mm-hmm. I get to make an educated choice. And then after we do the investment, I get to have an influence with those founders in terms of, hey, what are we going to do? How should we adjust so that our business so that we don't run out of money? Mm-hmm. Hey, here's a new threat coming over from here. I could talk to the founders and, hey, maybe we should do X or Y to on an ongoing basis to maximize the upside and minimize the downside. Mm-hmm. So I guess, like analytically, it is riskier, but I don't, on a day-to-day basis, I don't think of it that way.
Mm-hmm. No, I love having your take on it because, again, going back to textbook, right?
Yeah.
Like it would probably qualify VC as being, riskier than other businesses. But then hearing you talk about it, almost goes back to that confidence aspect that if you know what you're doing and you have the skills, the abilities, the experience, you have control, you know what you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So another question that I have for you is one that I like to ask certain people, because when I listen to these kind of interviews, whether
Yes.
it's in a podcast or live or whatnot, a question that I often hear is, if you could tell your younger self one thing that you would do differently, or if you had an advice for your younger self, what would it be? But I like to flip the script because you have a very impressive background. You're clearly very successful. And I want to know about one thing or one risk that you've taken that you would do all over again because it got you to where you are today.
So I think probably the biggest thing was when I decided, so this would have happened like in January 2000, when I moved to Silicon Valley to work for eBay.
Oh.
And so I had basically, grown up in Toronto, lived in Greater Toronto area my whole life, gone to Western. And I just got to the point where I was like, hey, you know what, this technology thing, this internet thing, it's going to change every single aspect of every single business. And I need to get into the technology industry because the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be into it. Mm-hmm. And it's harder to get into it. And I had ran a bunch of my own businesses when I was younger. And I thought, you know what, I want to move out to Silicon Valley and join a fast growing tech company. And it's just going to be a great opportunity. I thought it's going to be a great opportunity for me to learn and grow and develop on every dimension. And so long story short, I got away to going and I met Meg Whitman, who was CEO of eBay at the time. And we had a great conversation. She said, Janet, you should move out to California and join eBay. And when I joined eBay, about 80 or 90% of the things bought and sold on eBay were collectibles. So things like coins and stamps. And I was given responsibility for the non-collectibles categories, like clothing, home and garden, jewelry, books, etc., and tasked with trying to bring eBay into more of a create eBay into more of a mainstream marketplace. And like that experience was just so incredible. And like we proceeded to triple or quadruple that business year over year, really change what eBay was all about. But I think more importantly, I got to work with amazing people. I learned so much. It expanded my horizons. And it was one of the most, like, when I look back, like, that decision to go that way was really critical. And I think what it involved was sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, where's the world going? Where are my skills? My skills don't really meet the world, where the world's going. I better get on this. And then I'm going to take a risk. And I don't know anybody in Silicon Valley. I don't know anybody in San Francisco, but I'm going to move out there and it's going to be great.
So did you move there before having a job?
No, I had the job and then I moved there.
Wonderful. And then how big was eBay when you joined?
Oh, it was like 500 people.
And compared to how many?
Oh, I don't know how many they would have. I would guess 20,000 maybe now. But yeah, it was like doubling at least in people every year when I was there.
Oh my goodness.
So it was funny because, well, of course, for day one, you're like, hey, I'm the new kid here. And then within 6 months, it was like I was a veteran because they were just hiring so many people. So quick.
Wow. And was it, did you hesitate moving to California and making the leap? Or was it just so clear for you, this is the path that I need to take?
Yeah, it was sort of clear. I was like, so it's going to be fun. It'll be an adventure. I don't know anybody. I hope I can do the job. But anyways, I'll figure it out. I'll learn. Yeah. And so I just,
I love this. Like sometimes just, following your own intuition. And I think that's how I operate too. I mean, part of me is analytical for sure, but I'm a lot about feelings. And sometimes I just have moments of inspiration where I'm like, I need to do this. Like, and it just kind of starts something in me and I can't shake it out. And
yes.
Yeah. So I love hearing about those stories where you just know that's the right move. And
yeah, I really believe like there's an expression that says like make the small decisions in life with your head and the big ones with your heart. And so to me, what that means is like, hey, if you're lying in bed at whatever, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh man, I really don't want to get out of bed this morning to go exercise. It's your head that says, no, get out of bed and go for a run or whatever it is, right? And then you listen to your head for those like small things or like do the work, do this. But then if it's like the big things like, hey, should I take on this great new challenge? Should I like, then you have to, I think, listen to your heart and listen to your passion in terms of, hey, what really gets me excited? And what do I want to spend the next 5 or 10 years of my life dedicated to?
Very inspirational, I have to say. So one last question for you. So I think that there's a presumption out there that women tend to be more risk averse. And you've already given us your philosophy when it comes to risk, which is, not a textbook version, which I prefer your philosophy personally. But I'd like to unravel that notion that women tend to be more risk averse. And I want to, gender aside, I want to hear about being you, Janet, in your business, which is venture capital. Can you tell me about that?
In terms of how I think about risk or just in general?
Well, just like being a woman in venture capital, because again, like textbook wise, we think of VC as being a bit more risky, but then there's a presumption that women don't like risk.
Yes.
But I want to unravel that.
So I think for me, venture capital is a very male-dominated industry. And it's interesting. It's probably the most male-dominated industry that I've ever worked in. But my philosophy is I view myself as a business person, as somebody who is there to make a contribution, somebody who can sit at the table, who can bring solid arguments forward, who can make good decisions. And that's who I am. I don't view myself as, oh, I'm a woman and look around the table and I'm the only woman here and what am I going to do and do I really belong? Like that and I mean, getting back to athletics, which I think partially influenced me, is when I was growing up, I was a runner and I used to train with the guys. So it would be the guys and me training, like running around the track or doing hill intervals. And I was always like, I'm like, they're not going to drop me. Like, I'm the only girl in this pack. They are not going to drop me. Like, no way. And so it built that mentality of, yeah, like it's no problem. I can run with a pack of guys and I'm going to keep up with them. And also, I had 2 older brothers and I was always like, whatever they can do, I can do. And so I think it gives that mentality.
Yeah.
And it's really important, I think, to sort of say, hey, here's who I am. I think I have something to contribute. And I don't even really notice whether I'm the only woman in a room or not. And the odd time when I do notice it, I always take like a positive attitude. And so, for instance, I do remember one time I was in Europe and I was at like this senior venture capital event. And I walked into the room, and it was like the cocktail things. And it did sort of strike me. I was like, oh man, like this room, it's all men in blue suits. So I think it was also because they were all wearing the same color suits. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. This is like all men in blue suits. And then I thought, oh, this is great, because you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to meet a whole bunch of people. And tomorrow morning, they probably will have forgotten all the different Joe and Sam and Mark and Mike and everybody else that they met. But if I'm the only woman, they're hopefully going to remember me when I send them a note tomorrow and follow up with them. So it's like, okay, come on, let's go do it. So I think that's just like my attitude, which really helps a lot.
Yeah, no, and thank you for bringing that perspective too, because sometimes there are just these misconceptions, presumptions, and sometimes it's like, it's not about the gender. It's just you're excellent at your job. You've built such an impressive career. You know what you're doing. You can contribute, you can have an impact. And sometimes that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not about anything.
And I think the other thing is, like, as much as I'm all positive, and I am a pretty positive person, the reality is it's really hard. It's really hard, but it doesn't matter what gender you are. It is hard. Like, if you want to be successful in what you're doing, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. You're going to have setbacks. And so it's a matter of how you see those setbacks. And I think it's important that you don't see yourself as a victim, but you're like, okay, it's fine. I'll like learn from that and I'll go on. Yeah. And it's okay. I'm not going to get down. I'm just going to learn and I'm going to go on and I'm going to resolve to do better next time.
No, and I love that. And I guess on the final note, just borrowing from, being different from the crowd, I think that's something that I like to think that I've put emphasis on, because in those moments where it's more difficult, I was like, well, at least they'll remember me, because I was the only me in the room, for sure.
Yes, exactly. And it's all about embracing who you are, right? And your authenticity, and then only you can be you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Janet, thank you for answering all of my questions, but the interview is not over.
Okay.
So on Diverse Dividends, we have a tradition where every guest that we host, we ask the same 3 rapid fire questions. I call them dividend questions.
Okay.
Because our listeners are tuning in to reap dividends from listening to you. But this is kind of the extra bit of dividends.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
So question number 1, what do you love about what you do?
Oh, for sure. The number one thing I love about what I do is working with the founders, working with the entrepreneurs. I have so much respect and love and appreciation for them, and it's an honor to get to work with them.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I can feel the passion. That's great. What's one thing that you've changed your mind on recently?
Oh, well, I think that would have to go to the best late night snack. I used to be a mint chocolate chip ice cream fan, but now I'm cookies and cream all the way.
Oh, what made you switch? What happened?
I just decided life needed a little change. No, I don't know. It's just something fun that I changed recently.
No, I love it. And I might give it a try myself.
Absolutely.
And last question, what's one piece of advice that you have for our listeners who are looking to grow into their careers?
Oh, I would say number one thing is just go for it. Figure out where you want to be, where you want to go, and develop a plan and go for it. And I think too many times people just let their careers happen to them. And so my piece of advice for folks would be very deliberate about where you want to go and how you're going to get there.
Well, that is it for us. Janet, thank you so much. Honestly, this was inspirational. Selfishly, I took a lot out of it, and I hope that our listeners did as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was absolutely so much fun and great to be here.